afternoon, everybody. There's some good speaker sound. Glad you guys could all make it. It's fantastic, rainy April weather we have here. And just to introduce myself, my name is Dr. Kelly Torrisi, and I work at Auburn Equine in Auburn, which is the fantastic place for Tevis to finish. And some of you guys have been on the trail and some of you guys have not, but I have been also on the Tevis Trail a few times. And last year I was lucky enough to be placed at Chicken Hawk, so I made myself this fancy hat. And it hopefully brings you a smile, and it does me as well. So I have two presentations to talk to you guys about today. And some of you guys may have heard them, maybe not, but I thought I'd jazz it up with some cool pictures and PowerPoints. And I dispense those to you guys as well today. Additionally, if you have questions, we can take those. Reminder, there is a stick mic. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll have the mic come over and you can ask your question. Everybody can hear and we can respond. If there's a more in-depth question, I will table it to another time or later. There's a bit to get through, but I hope you guys are all excited because these two things are pretty dear to myself. So I'm going to talk about, the first one is the endurance card parameters. What do they mean? And the second one, now that you'll know what's on that card, I'm going to teach you how to fly through your vet exam so you can get down that trail faster and have every second count down on that trail. So we're going to jump into the endurance card parameters. Everybody has seen, or hopefully have been on a trail and seen this fantastic endurance card. And we're going to go through each one of these boxes. What do they mean? What is involved? And we do that entire exam in 90 to 120 seconds. We can do it very quickly. And we'll talk about how to go through your exam quicker, because my exam technically only takes like 2 minutes. So there's a lot of things you can do to make those 2 minutes fly really fast. In addition, because we are assessing your horse's ability to continue down the trail, we're doing it in that 2 minutes flat, and we need to make quick decisions, healthy decisions for you and your horse. So I kind of move them out of order on that card because the card is how we move across the horse, but we move across the horse front to back, and in doing so, we're monitoring multiple systems. One of them, I lumped 6 things together for hydration parameters. We're going to talk about mucous membranes, capillary refill, skin tent, jug refill. Borborygmi is a really fun word, is the gut sounds, and your muscles. All of those can relate to hydration. Exhausted horse I threw out there is anal tone. External factors can be your saddle, tack, galls, wounds, mobility, your gait, attitude, and impulsion, and overall your impression. And we'll talk about each one of those as a veterinarian. I know this is wordy and you have it written down, but it's mostly just a generalization here. Understanding the AERC grading scale. You've heard those vets call out letters and all sorts of things. Sometimes they say pluses and numbers, but traditionally they are ABCs. So the grading scale, here's a very important note. The grading scale is not meant to be emotional. It is educational. So sometimes we hear, oh, C's, oh no, this is bad. It might be something, hey, he needs a bite to eat. Or, hey, he needs an extra mash. Or, hey, he needs an extra drink of water. One of those things. So it's not meant to be your horse is terrible, you're an awful rider, this is awful. No, it's not meant to be emotional. We are stating facts and we are trying to get you to improve your scores to keep you down the trail. So as a reminder, A is perfectly normal. B, a little bit off perfect, still normal, indicating the body is working. C, we're getting a little more from perfect. Starting to have a little concern. That's where we're talking about maybe we can adjust some things and fix some things. Could be water, electrolytes like we stated, maybe changing game plan. Maybe we need different tack. Who knows, right? D, not acceptable. This is a case for being pulled. As we traditionally see the horses that are lame, they're head bobbing lame. The kid across the yard can see that it's lame. It needs to be pulled. Another one would be the elevated CRI, the cardiac recovery index. We're going to talk about that later. If you have that one, that's not exactly an ABC scale because those are two numbers that we are evaluating. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of that, how we would decide if that is a problem or not. Again, they're guidelines, not a report card. I know everybody takes pictures. That's great because then you can follow along how other rides have gone, but it's not, you will still continue on to the next grade. Yes, it's to assess the overall health and fitness of your horse to continue on to have many more happy rides together. All right. And again, all of these pictures I borrowed from the Tevis website. So please do not share them too drastically. And I think Chrissy Tadlock taking pictures today, I think I might have thrown some of hers in here as well. So the first one, this is one everybody is familiar with. Resting horses, especially really fit horses, can be down to a 28 heart rate. Maybe an average horse, maybe in one that's a little unfit can be 48, or one that's excited can be 48. As you know, your criteria for most rides is between 60 and 64, and here's the catch. The main objective for this heart rate is fitness to continue. A well-conditioned horse should be expected to recover a pulse of 64 within 10 minutes of arrival to a checkpoint and below 60 in 20. If you're getting to 64 by 30 minutes, just barely squeaking by, that's going to be following you throughout the whole ride. The only exception would be a horse that's just really excited. And we take that into consideration, but we will look at the whole horse and we see how they're doing there. When we listen to the horse, it's sometimes hard because we hear a lot of ambient noise. Today I can hear cars and rain and things like that. So if I'm listening, I'm also listening for not wandering. Labial is just kind of like weak, thin, and slapping. So if you've ever sat on your horse and they saw a boogeyman in the trees and you can feel their whole heart going, sometimes when you listen to the heart and you've got your stethoscopes there and it's really faint, it's not productively pushing blood through. And sometimes we can hear that. So that's kind of important information for us to know. And you should meet that 30 minutes of your criteria when you enter your checkpoint. Again, that could be a problem if you're not. Cardiac recovery index. I have followed, some vets don't do it. I do it every single vet check I can, except for trot and go. Essentially, it only takes an extra 15 seconds to write down that second number. So you come up to me, I get your card, I'm going to do that first heart rate, send you down to trot, I'm going to do my full exam, and I get a second heart rate. Because as we said, the exam takes about a minute to 2 minutes. So what a cardiac recovery index is, it's very specific actually. You present at your 64 or less, you're going to trot out 125 feet and back. 90% of the time is not 125 feet. And everybody complains, it's so far. I'm like, it's not even 125 feet. So I think Kathy's smiling over there because I made her trot farther a few times. So, so it should be, to be completely accurate, is that 125 and back. And from the moment you take that heart rate, you go out and back, and then you wait that 60 seconds to take that second heart rate. The second heart rate should be the same as the starting heart rate, ideally 4 less, but acceptable to have 4 higher. When you get that wider range of greater than 4, you're indicating that your horse is having a hard time recovering and he may not do well on the trail. Sometimes we can give them a break, come back, repeat the CRI, but if they're still have a delayed CRI, that would be a major concern for fitness to continue and looking at the whole horse and deciding if it's the right thing to continue down the trail. Mucous membranes. This is a hard to see, truly appreciate color, but I know you've all been in your horse's muzzles and looking at all their gums. Those nice pink mucous membranes that are moist, not dry or tacky, are all good things. When we see a line starting to appear around the gums here, that's a little darker than the rest up here, we're concerned about perfusion. So the horse is pushing blood to all their extremities. Right here is a change in perfusion of blood flow. So if we have a change, I had one recently that was normal color, and I had remembered seeing that horse before, and at the next one, it started getting pinker than it was before. An hour later, it got even darker. So there was a significant change, and that's something we can follow and put on your card. Continue on.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so for the novice, here I am. So when you start to see that line, that means that the blood is not flowing appropriately through the horse?
Correct.
Okay.
When the really bad ones are purple or injected, because the quality of blood getting to those extremities is kind of pooling and can't get back. So it's not ideal. You should have an ability to return blood safely, and it should be consistently the same color.
Is heat a factor that changes that or makes that more drastic in horses?
Is heat a factor? No, because this is a hydration factor. The only way heat would be a factor is if they're dehydrated because it's hot. So it can be hot outside, you could be well hydrated, and that color shouldn't affect that. Yeah. Thank you. Great questions, you guys. Got lots more to go through. It's a big, long card. So sticking with our mucous membranes, we have capillary refill. So as you've all seen, and our vets, we push our finger lightly on a spot at the gum, right where we talked about, and see the time to return to full color at that spot. When we're delayed more than 2 seconds, our blood volume is less and our blood pressure is not efficient enough to get the color back where it needs to be. Again, if you're dehydrated, your blood is filled with red blood cells and plasma and serum. So if you don't have enough circulating blood volume to get red blood cells there, that's going to change your color and your time. Sorry, it's all loud. Jugular refill. As you've seen again, we block the vein halfway up the neck or so, and we see how quickly it fills back up. Again, this is pretty subjective, but I think you guys have all seen as horseback riders when it pops right back up or not. If it doesn't pop back up, you again have falling blood pressure. Horses are kind of cool. They do have valves in their vein. So when they push blood up to their heart, they do have little stoppers. But if you're trying to push blood up to your heart and you don't have enough circulating blood volume and your heart is tired and is trying to get it up there, it should feel pretty quickly. So if it's not, you're having trouble, and that's part of the hydration status that we talked about at the beginning. All of these things combined will tell us how your horse is hydrated. Skin tenting. Again, this one's pretty specific as well. We typically do the skin tent at the point of the shoulder, not on the neck. As you know, there can kind of be rolly skin on the neck. You can grab a lot of skin on the neck and it can still stand. But specifically over the point of the shoulder, that's unique because there isn't a lot of elasticity as there is in the neck. Now here's the interesting part. As you know, that when you skin tent, it should snap right back into place. Your fascia is the tissue underneath your skin and between the muscle. If you're not hydrated, it'll get sticky. If you have a nice loose elasticity, it should go nice and flat pretty quickly. However, when it stays skin actually tented, like actually stays there like the long time, this would indicate 4% dehydration, which this is the money talk right here of this whole part. When you are 4% dehydrated, that means that that's 4% of the horse's body weight is loss of water. So if you are a 1,000-pound horse and I pinch over your shoulder and it stays there and I walk away and it still stays there, you have lost 40 pounds of water weight. That's a big deal. So even when you're slightly dehydrated, that's a water loss issue, and we need to correct that.
So, what if my horse is old? On the skin tinting.
What if your horse is old regarding skin tinting?
Because I've seen that where even if the horse hasn't done anything, the skin doesn't respond the same way?
So there's a difference in delayed skin tint where you're completely staying there. That's the 4%. If you're skin tint and then you go back to normal, that's 1 to 2%. So it depends. And we talked about the fascia, the tissue that's between the skin and the muscle. If there is something going on there, that's unique, but you should be well hydrated and shouldn't really have significant skin tint, at least at check-in for a vet exam, even if you're an old horse. You should be able to snap your skin back if you're well hydrated. Yeah. Thank you. Great question. Gut sounds. I mentioned borborygmi. I think that's what it says on the card. Borborygmi is the fancy Latin term for gut sounds. I just really like saying the word. It's fun. So we listen to each of the 4 quadrants of the horse's abdomen. And again, this is where it might vary between different veterinarians. Some people have pluses and minuses. Some people have numbers. It's supposed to be letters. It's all right if it's not, because it is a pretty subjective thing. How I do it, and there is some variability, but pretty much they're all the same. If I can put my stethoscope on and I hear something, anything immediately, A's. If I put my stethoscope on and I wait a second, but then I hear something, B's. If I put my stethoscope on and I wait past that minute where it feels a little uncomfortable and you're like tapping your toes, I can't hear much of anything. Now, a normal horse who's not in work should have 1 borborygmi in a minute. These horses should have borborygmi in less than a minute because we're feeding them, we're moving them, they should be going, they should have some movement. If you have C's in all quadrants, I'm worried about your horse. And if you go on your hour hold and you still have C's an hour later after you just had a big meal, I'm still really worried about your horse. So it might be that you have C's because you're terrified there's a boogeyman in the corner and you haven't been eating, but you're bouncing off the walls, probably not concerning. If you're got C's and you just ate and you look tired, I'm worried about your horse. So you have to take it into account with the whole horse. Let's see. Additionally, there is a situation when you have that very exhausted horse and you have hypermodal gut sounds. It's right before a fancy word called ileus, which is why we're testing your horse's gut sounds. Ileus is a fancy word for no movement to gut sounds. And anybody who's been constipated and your guts aren't moving, it's terrible. If you're a horse, it's life-threatening. So when we're listening to gut sounds, it is a potentially life-threatening situation, and it is very valuable, not just A's, B's, C's. It's a really important life-threatening test to be measuring. Typically, a little bite of food, a little movement, that usually improves their gut sounds, so if it's not, that is a problem. Anal tone, I kind of skip this one, mostly because the horses who are doing endurance really don't appreciate it. And it's unsafe for me. Traditionally, though, so I took a picture of someone taking a temperature, because as you all know, they kind of pucker, right? So if people do anal tone, they just run their hand down on their, and when they're doing their back muscle, they run their hand down their back leg. They can sometimes swipe by and just touch the anus, and they usually pucker. That's good enough. I don't want to get kicked, so I don't do it. But the very severe horse, the anal tone will be absent. So they will stand there and their anus will be open. And that is severe. They shouldn't have that response. They just don't even have enough electrical capacity, hydration to constrict their muscles. Typically, that's not seen that often because we try to catch them before that happens. Muscle tone. So we're looking for good, soft, non-painful with no heat to their muscles. Typically, we look at those on those hind legs, but you can find it on their back and on their below their saddle area. If they've had concussion, if you lost a stirrup and you've been putting all your weight on one side, they might have a painful epaxials, those muscles on the top, and they could be having an issue there. Sometimes, specifically if they are starting to tie up on one leg, we compare the left and right. semimembranosus, semitendinosus muscles, those muscles that run along the backside. We can compare the two. If they're not nice and soft, you're about to have a tie-up or another issue there. Back and withers, as you're familiar with a saddle fit, things like can happen there. And looking for soft, non-painful. Sometimes, if you notice, we're pretty gentle when we're touching the horse's back. We don't want to cause a problem for you. So we're not digging in your horse's back with talons or anything like that. If we can feel something with even the slightest pressure, there's a problem. There's been times where I've just hovered over the back and the whole horse would wince. So we're not actually trying to elicit pain. We're looking for pain with even just the lightest pressure. Tack galls. So this is some withers here, hard to see, but there's some old scars here, but these are new wounds that are open. They're not red and irritated. They're new though. So we're looking for horses, areas on the horse where anywhere the tack touches, breastplate, boots, the halter, the bridle. So we looking on both sides of the horse, insides and outsides. As we take that walk around your horse, we're looking for anywhere that tack has touched that horse that could be causing an issue. If it's a bit, maybe you can use a hackamore. Who knows? There could be other ways you can manage. A lot of times the girth is really painful, so maybe you need to swap out a girth. Things like that are something that we're looking for. Or add boots too. Sometimes they interfere and they need some boots. This picture was really important to me. So when horses out on the trail, I'm klutzy, I fall, horses fall. Sometimes they just kick a rock as they go by. So we're looking for wounds that maybe not necessarily from your tack, but from the trail. I know a couple years ago, there was a horse that slipped at Cougar Rock and had a teeny tiny little cut on its fetlock and actually had penetrated into the joint. So yeah, so there are some things, and specifically on this horse's knee, there's a minor abrasion. The question always is, even though what we see, and I think this is really important. So if you're standing straight, everything is bunched up. But if you fell, it's opened and there could be a tiny cut. And then when you stand up, that cut is missing and you could have had an infection into a joint just by cutting through. It's when we see the wounds, that's not always how the wound happened. So there could be something more important going there. So again, if this horse had any concern that there was a cut on this knee, that would be not fit to continue. There was a horse too that had an eye injury, and during it was seen at the end of the ride. I don't know when the injury happened, because he didn't start the ride with the eye injury, but at the end of the ride his eye was half closed, there was some tearing. I wouldn't want to be out there running with a corneal ulcer on my knee, so that would also be not fit to continue. Maybe they whacked himself with a tree branch, something like that. So it doesn't always have to be like career ending or serious or $10,000 to fix, but it can be something of, can this horse go back out on the trail? Even if it's the end, that is a good enough reason to pull. I guess most of you guys are aware of the grading scale. I'm going to go through it again. So grade 1 lameness is difficult to observe, it's not consistent or apparent regardless of circumstances. So you might see it in the straight ones, you might see it going to the left and not to the right, but it's not very consistent, hard to choose a limb. Grade 2, the lameness is only seen on a circle. So that's where we're looking for those BC horses. So we're sound on a straightaway, but when you go on a circle, you can see a lameness. That would be a grade 2. Grade 3 is a lameness seen in a straight line consistently. So every step. Now here's the deal. With grade 3, we can see for A or C, you need to have 75% of your steps lame. And the catch is, if I have a giant rock in my foot, I'm going to be really lame. If I have a pebble in my foot, I'm going to be lame, but I'm not going to be as lame. Doesn't matter. I still have a rock in my foot. I'm still having pain. If it's every step, that is where it's different. Uh, Additionally, down on the sound. So when we see them with their head up, that's the leg on the ground, that's the leg that's lame. So with their head up on the front end, head up is the lame leg, down on the sound. Same thing is true with the hind end. What we're looking for is a hip hike. So their hips should have this nice even movement, but if you have one that's higher than the other and it's consistent, that's considered a lameness, and if it's more than 75% of the steps, it's considered to be pulled. 4 is lame at the walk, and 5 is non-weight bearing lameness. Grades 1 and 2 can pass. Grade 3 out of 5 would be pulled. And we try really hard never to have one veterinarian say that, so we want to make sure if I have 3 vets and 2 disagree, or 1 disagrees, if we are not all unanimous, I will let the horse go, because it needs to be a unanimous decision for when I am a head vet. Impulsion. Little anecdote. My husband doesn't believe it's a word, but I explained it to him at length last night. So we describe it as the loss of elasticity, power, and length of stride. These are proportional to muscle fatigue and often moderately deteriorate over the course. I know when I start a ride, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And over the end, my strides are shorter. I'm a little more tired. But when I can tell a difference of when a horse trots out, that they just bomb out like a rocket and come flying back and drag their owners back, I would say that horse has very good impulsion. There's a degree of impulsion with regards to breed, because there are some breeds that take some convincing to do some work out there. And it's not always related to muscle fatigue. That's just a personality issue. So we do try to take that into account. If you are a very tired, let's say Arabian horse, and you were bombing around at the beginning and now you're really tired and have to take a lot of convincing, that could be electrolyte imbalances, dehydration. It could be tying up, overheating, lots of other things. So that's something that we take into account with the whole horse. Attitude. I think the next slide will show it. I just took the difference here between these horses. She's kind of tugging on the horse. His ears are back. This horse, I think it would have outrun the rider here. So you can see a difference in attitude. I tried to pick the same breed of horse so you can kind of compare apples to apples. But we try also to compare your horse to what it was earlier if we have seen that horse before. But if we personally haven't, because there's lots of vets on the trails, we will go back and look at your vet card. Has he always been a B? Okay. And if he was an A and now he's a B, that's concerning, and that's something we can track. Overall impression. Here we have Mike Tomlinson. I really loved his pensive look here. He's assessing the horse while he's doing other things. And we compare, like we said, all those things from hydration status and tack and attitude and gait. And we look at the whole horse overall. Sometimes they have this little depressed look to their eye. We've seen a lot of horses, as there's 70, 100 horses and we're doing 2-minute exams on them all. We've seen a lot of horses. And we see the general attitude of a lot of horses. So we're comparing what we see in the whole crowd versus specifically your specific horse. So we try to take into your horse compared to the general and make the best decision what we can say for that. Thumps, I was just going to put it on here. I didn't really want to get into a thumps discussion, but I wanted you to know what it is. It's basically horsey hiccups, and it's a decrease in calcium. So the diaphragm will flutter, and it kind of goes in sync with the heart rate. So a lot of times they can resolve by just having a snack on some alfalfa. And if it doesn't resolve, you can't go back on the trail. So there's some debate on that one, but I would prefer you not. If you're having electrolyte imbalance, you're only going to get it worse if you go back on the trail. Body condition score. There's quite a range. So the scale goes from 1 to 9, 1 being a skeleton, and 2 would be extremely morbidly obese. Average is a 5, and most endurance horses are between a 4 and a 5. 3 is really scary to go through. I have, this horse was a 2, that's a 5, that's a 9. The problem is when you're a 3, you don't have enough muscle mass to do the job. When you're a 9, you have the muscle mass, but it's infiltrated with fat, so you therefore don't have enough muscle mass to do the job. So it's really important. I see these horses tying up because their muscles are tired and fatigued. These ones overheat and have a hard time going down the trail. So it is really important to be that 4, 5, 6, you're getting into trouble, but you can still do it if you're well conditioned, depending on the breed of the horse. We put those numbers at check-in so we can see, can you check in? I have been on the fence about denying the horse a start because of the body condition. So review, this is a 2-minute exam. We're looking for problems before it's too late. I would rather your horse go back to the trailer and eat some hay than you need to go to a hospital on fluids. Again, the grading scale is a guideline, not an emotional system. So I hope that kind of clears the mystery of that vet card and brings home the importance of what we're doing in that very short amount of time. And I think I might have enough to fit through my 10-minute sail through. Okay, the top 10 ways to sail through your vet check exam. We find that riders tend to place their vet cards in weird places. Either in their undergarments, sometimes they leave them in their tack, sometimes they are under their helmet. I have seen them come from some strange places. If you choose to carry them on your personal body, that's fine. Please put them in a plastic and don't hand me the plastic. So grab them, hand them to, I prefer the vet secretary. I spoke to another vet. He actually likes looking at the card because he wants to see how you've been doing and just to check on things really quickly. But he might be like a check and handoff. So either way, your safest bet is with the vet secretary. And that way they can get to riding really quick while I can be listening to your horse. Additionally, when you have it out, unfold it because it takes that much longer for them to unfold it and put it on their board while I'm listening to the heart and doing the whole exam. So speed, bring your vet card dry and opened. 2, train for your trot out. I believe I have more on this on the how to trot out part, which is number 3. Having your horse trained to trot out will save you and your horse 125 feet repeatedly. So if you can not run in front of your horse, that is helpful because then I can see your horse. There have been many times where I've seen people drag their horse, pull on their head, induce a lameness. Well, now I need to see your horse go again. If you stand in front of your horse, I can't see your horse. I need to see you run again. That's a lot of running. Everybody's tired. The horse is tired. Please do the entire length of the trot out. A lot of times you're asking the horse to trot. They don't start until halfway and then they peter out towards the end. I only got 3 to 4 steps. I cannot safely evaluate your horse. So trot the entire length of the lane. And then while you're down there, make sure you're aware of your surroundings. There are some tight places. There's lots of horses. Try to be aware of your surroundings. You also don't need to careen and make this crazy trot turn. You could stop, take your safe turn, head back. And then when you head back on number 3, know where you're going. So when you go down the road and find your spot, find your cone, find a marker, find a rock. When you turn around, find the crazy vet with the crazy pink hat. Whatever it takes, find your marker, trot straight to that location. And that it will incredibly help you get down the road faster. If you have to do one trot out, that would be fantastic. Fun little thing about horses, they're just like us. They have their heart on their left side. That's why we typically listen to their heart on the left side. But additionally, their heart is pretty large. It's like a volleyball or basketball. But the catch is their triceps are huge. So when they stand, if that triceps, their left front leg is back, I can't listen to their heart because they have so much muscle mass. So making sure this horse has its left front back, it's hard to get a good quality heart rate exam and listen to the heart. So if you think about it, sometimes I try to touch their foot to have them move forward. Sometimes they spook. But having you present the horse well with its fight either square or left front forward is magical. Oh my gosh, it makes my day. Additionally, everybody is so excited to feed your horse. You, everybody else. Please, please, please do not feed your horse during its exam. Multiple things happen that you're kind of unaware of. One, your heart rate will increase. You don't want that. I know you're trying to work for the guts, but you're not going to magically increase the guts at that moment while his teeth are chewing. So that was a before thing, not a now thing. Additionally, what happens when you walk up with your mash or your hay, it goes on the ground and creates a chain reaction for every horse after you. They walk up like, hey, vet, boom, to the ground. And you can't lift their head up and they're being unruly. So please don't do that. Additionally, when they have food in their mouth, we can't see their gums, all the things, no food. And that goes back to no food. The mash does the same thing. I think horses should absolutely have a mash. Please don't bring it in the vet box. And sometimes if it's so goopy, we can't see their mouths. We're like trying to push away the mash from their teeth. No rubbing. There's a lot of times we get rubbed on by ponies. It's fine if you're at home, but they're sweaty, they're gross, and they knock us over and push us into other people. So if you can find a way to help control their urges, or you can let them rub on you, but even when they do, they're throwing their head so much, it's hard to listen to their guts, or they're giant animals, but one thing causes a reaction to the other part of their body. Oh, fingers are cold. Please help teach your horse to let us look at their gums. There are a lot of horses that refuse to let us look at their gums. Taking the time at home to lifting their gums, touching their gums, I know they get really frustrated with the electrolytes. Maybe if you do that on the right side and not the left side, or find some way to get around their avoidance of having their mouth looked at. Having the time at home to play with them versus only at the ride is a really important task. What happens is our arms are going up, our arms hurt. It's not just your horse, it's the 30 other horses that are doing the same thing. So take the time, we really appreciate it. Being proactive, knowing what's required of you at any particular check-in. There are some gate and goes, you get to keep your tack on. There's some where tack off is required. It requires that all the tack is off. I see people with the saddle off, but the boots on and the bit in. If I'm looking for tack galls, I can't see that very effectively, or wounds under bits, under boots. So make sure that you're aware of what's required of you. If you have the luxury of having P&Rs kind of help you figure it out, take out what you arrive into a check. Your heart rate's high. Taking the time to pull the tack, even if it's not required, cooling off your horse appropriately and presenting the best horse possible is worth every extra minute outside versus in the vet check. If you come up, we have to ask you to come back. You've now wasted the time of somebody else presenting to the veterinarian. So present the best horse that you can by taking that extra time ahead of time. If you have concern about lameness, checking their feet or for rocks, making sure there's no wounds under the split boots or anything like that. And again, like I said, do it away from the vet area to make sure everybody else has a fast check-in as well. I think I mentioned stop requirements already. I think we'll skip that one. And the last one is be polite. Know that I didn't wake up today to pull your horse. I came here to make sure that you have a healthy horse for the next ride. I don't want to pull your horse, but if I say I think it's safe for your horse to be pulled today, know that I'm doing it out of love, out of concern, out of safety, and it's just the way cookie crumbles. Not every ride you will get a finish on. Not every ride will be the best ride ever, and that's okay, right? So please have good sportsmanship. Please be kind. If you have questions, please ask questions. But it's really hard when we have verbal arguments or disagreements. For example, there was someone I had 4 vets and we all unanimously said that the horse was lame, and the rider says, well, I just don't see it. That kind of is hard and it's frustrating. And I understand that, but if you have 4 veterinarians, then it's probably true. Like, oh, that sucks. I guess I should go back to my veterinarian and get an exam. That's a fine response instead of arguments. So being a positive attitude, it will take you a very long way. So practice at home, you're trotting out, you're handling, you're standing still, ask questions, learn. That's why we're here today. And we love sharing what we know. That's why we are here. So thank you so much. Do you guys have any questions? Yes.
So in cooling your horse, can you give your feedback on do you feel it's appropriate for the crew to put cool water on the rear end of a horse, all those muscles?
So the question is on cooling a horse, is on the hind quarters of a horse a valuable place to put fluids, cold water? Typically, I would recommend the jugulars and the ventrum, the bottom part of the horse. The reason why is our jugular veins have, on our neck and on our belly, we have a lot of external vessels. And if you can cool those vessels, they will send the blood flow to their entire abdomen. By doing the muscles over the top of the group, there's really not a lot of value besides having cramping. So I would suggest doing the external vessels to cool the entire horse more quickly. And also any areas where there's heavy hot things, so underneath the saddle, things like that. That would be a wise decision. Take into account your own horse, but that's typically the best way to go. Fantastic questions. Thank you so much. I had a fantastic time. And if you have any questions, you can email or call and we can chat further. Thank you so much.